Good evening, everybody. My name's Ken Miller, and I am a member of the committee that has been working at Father's request, planning committee, looking at some of the options for upcoming different events that are going to be happening. And we're putting together recommendations to give to Father. So this evening, we have several reports from some of our subcommittees. They're going to go first, share information. Father's going to speak, and then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. So the questions, we will do our best to answer your questions. Father mentioned at one of our meetings that right now, some of the questions that we have, right now we don't have answers. So if everything's being recorded, we're going to be documenting questions. And if there's one that we don't have an answer for this evening, we will do our best to get back with an answer. So to start off this evening, again, I want to thank you all for coming on this nice rainy evening. And we're going to start with a brief report from each of the standing committees. Jim, you want to kick it off? Say hello.
Hi, my name is Jim McNeil. I'm a member of the Planning Committee, and I was responsible for kind of coordinating the survey. First thing I want to say, for anybody that's in this room who submitted one of the surveys, first and foremost, no one except myself has seen any of the surveys. I'm the one who pulled it all together, tabulated it to all of the answers, etc. And I want to say, of 1,385 letters that Father sent out for Christmas that had the surveys inside, we had a response of 236. Now, that may not seem like a lot for that, but that's a 17% response rate, which is amazing for this type of survey, okay? So the first slide showing the survey, please. The survey responses. Next. 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 There we go. No, next one too. All right. I pulled out 5 overwhelming major response areas, okay, to the survey. And they're shown up here and they're on your handout. The first one was to the question, would you go to Mass within the cluster if your Mass time and location was changed? And 28% between both parishes said no. And the majority of the reason was time. Many responded that they couldn't drive at night, for example, time and distance. So that was one of the first things that really came across. Several commented on the need to create a more welcoming environment. People saying hello, welcoming us when we came to church, knowing your name, that sort of thing. The other one was multiple requests for a more vibrant music program from both parishes, not just one. They mentioned youth choir. They mentioned maybe music before, music after. So basically just energize the music program to enhance the liturgy. A number stressed the need for greater youth attendance and involvement. This one, I have to say, I had a couple people respond, and it really caused my own emotions to get sad, because they said both my children and grandchildren no longer attend Mass. And the number of times that I've heard the intentions when we watched Mass during COVID on television was people would say, for the intention of my children and grandchildren to return to the faith. So I'm saying is, this is a desire on, I think, all of our part, but it's going to be a tough hill to climb. And the last one, enhanced means of communication. We do an okay job, but we need to stress more, and it would probably be the help of volunteers to do that, to use our Facebook more, use our website more. I know that St. Maximilian Kolbe just recently created a volunteer brochure, which is fabulous. Because, and now that's the other thing that's still interesting. I had somebody from Max Kolbe that was looking for a particular ministry that's already noted in the brochure. So it's, no matter how hard we try, we're still going to miss some folks, okay? And finally, the question that's not up here, but I thought about it after, and that is, when we ask the question, how can we bring some of these people back? Because this isn't just about those who attend increasing their contribution, but those that no longer come, we need to get them back. And there was like, form and train a team to make outreach phone calls inviting people back. In other words, physically, don't just put something in the bulletin because they're not here anyway, but contact them. Enhance communications. Again, Facebook. Look to the creation of more youth-oriented activities to bring families back. And finally, is it possible to do visual presence in posters, the newspaper? You know, can we put a poster in the library listing upcoming events that might attract families, individuals to come back? So that was the result of the survey, and I want to stress at my end, that survey is confidential. And I was the only one that saw it, and I'm the only one that still retains it. So I don't want anyone to worry that something that they said out of frustration or whatever is going to be known to somebody else. It's not. So thank you. Where's my... You said 4 minutes, Ken. I talked fast coming from New England.
You go right into the next thing.
I do?
Yes, you do. Next one is introduction of the team members. We don't just
Oh,
kind of
I
see
didn't-
them. Yeah, see, you go way down to here.
You can tell this was rehearsed.
Do you want Ken to present them? He did them on Monday.
I know them, but Ken can do better. He doesn't have the short-term memory that I do.
Good evening, folks. My name is Kendolph Thomas, but you can refer to me as Ken. I will answer, except there's another Ken. So this is Ken M, this is Ken T. So my part, as part of this committee, I took what I would call the shortcut. I started to ask the question, who are the members of the two parishes? And oh, by the way, where are the two parishes? So we talk about the parishes, but I'm sure many people don't know where they are, the boundaries. And so we were able to, with Mary's help, speaking with the diocese, we were able to get the mailing list from the Catholic Courier. We were also able to get the mailing list from the CMA yearly activity. And the third, I did not get a mailing list because I did not want it. I just simply wanted to know the number of people that received the 1099 forms for your yearly contributions. Because in looking through the diocese work, there are three things that they use to do all of their pluses and minuses: the number of households in the parish, the median income of those households, the number of parishioners that attend Mass, weekly, monthly. There's an average that puts together, and the amount of contributions those attendances make. So by doing my back of the envelope, looking at Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that, I started by downloading the map, the parish map for both parishes, St. Max Colby and Catherine Drexel. The map slide, please. One more. There you go. So what is highlighted in the white border are the two parishes that exist in Wayne County. The four white triangles are the four churches that make up these two parishes. St. Mary's on the top left, Church of the Epiphany on the top right, lower left is St. Patrick, lower right, St. Anne's. What I did next was overlaid that against the zip code map so that we can sort of sort through where are the people who attend these two parishes, where are they living? Again, trying to address who we are. And as you go to the next map, thank you. That little table is simply the result of endeavors. Based on the Catholic Courier, CC, I was able to look at all of the addresses and map them into the zip codes. And at the top, you would see it has a total of, for St. Max, it has a total of 937. For the CMA for St. Max, it was 233. And for the 1099 forms, the yearly contributors, it's 352. For Catherine Drexel, 839, 157, 202. The other thing that I looked at as I sorted through the zip codes, there were many people who are registered in the two parishes, but live outside of the parish boundaries. Some live outside of the parish boundaries, but still within the Diocese of Rochester. And some live outside of the boundaries, outside of the diocese, outside of New York State. And at the bottom, you would find those numbers there, which means that the Catholic Courier basically goes all over the place. So it's an expense when people don't contribute that yearly subscription. And I know the finance councils always have a line item there that says Catholic Courier. But it is one way of evangelizing to the faithful. The important things that I was trying to capture here is just the three pieces: number of households, number of contributors, and the actual people who make things happen. Next, please. This is slide represents the information in terms of the yearly contributors from 2018 accurate to 2022. Based on the slope, I made a projection as what it would be in 2023. I have to confirm that number with the secretary sometime this week because I believe the packages were mailed out. So this would just be my confirmation to my estimates, which is what is highlighted in yellow. But you can see the trend is there. We are going on a downward slope. So our task and our objective, or our opportunity, is to flatten that curve and make it go up. Next, please. This represents the average monthly attendance taken during the month of October from 2012 to 2023. We were able to put 2023 in because we kept the count every week. And again, you can see the trend is a downward trend. The big dip is during the COVID years, the 2 years of COVID. And we've rebounded, but it's still on a downward trajectory. Next. These are the trends and the numbers for different things that we have done over the years. Summarized from 2012, I believe, all the way to 2022, the number of funerals, the number of baptisms, number of births. This is just the historical data collated and printed out for your reference. I take the pleasure in handing this over to Laura. Nope, I'm sorry. Ann Sass, staffing.
Hi, most of you know me. I'm on the Human Capital Subcommittee or People Committee. The members were Bridget Blanchard, Rita Gobert, and Tom and Betty Breyer. In this spreadsheet, this is basically paid staffing. And as you can see, we only have 6 full-time people in the parish. Father Simon and Father White, of course, are full-time. Mary Capone is full-time. Full-time is 35 hours, and if you look, her hours at St. Max are, I guess, 3 and 8.5 at Drexel. That's because she also goes to the Eastern clusters. So part of her time is spent in the Eastern clusters, as is Nikki Baker. She's she takes care of the cemetery, and she's a business manager. So her hours are also spread between our cluster and the Eastern cluster. 5 parishes. Then we have Katie Mall, who is new. I think you've probably all met her. She's full-time. She does spend maybe 3-4 hours a week at servicing Drexel also. And this is mainly doing the bulletin, and also she's taken on social media. So you'll notice the webpage and stuff is being cared for. And then we also have a part-time secretary, and she is mainly at Catherine Drexel, although she does spend about 7 hours here helping out. Then we go into faith formation is Corey. Corey is also split between St. Max and Catherine Drexel, and she also does confirmation prep for the Eastern. So as you can see, the hours are spread across the whole, basically across the county. And then last but not least is Jeff Wright, who was just recently hired. He is full-time here at St. Max for not buildings and grounds, I guess you'd call him maintenance supervisor. Eventually some of his time will be spent at Catherine Drexel. I think that's planned. So,
supervisory.
yeah. So then we have a lot of some part-time people. We have Bob Hillis doing custodial work at Epiphany. There is a Larry Prutzman who does some maintenance and stuff at St. Catherine Drexel's. And then there's other people that kind of fill in when needed. Music, as far as music goes, Doreen is 4 hours here at St. Max. And then everyone else is per service, more or less. And so a lot of the accompanists are per service. Cantors are usually volunteers, although we do have one that is paid. And that's kind of a snapshot of the paid staff. We have a lot of volunteers, which I won't go into, but they're as important, maybe more important.
The other day, I explained at Drexel that over the course of the 10 years that I've been working here in the county, we've really tried to share services. That was the big idea when they actually created the regional finance position, was to get into the parishes and actually try to manage the attrition, if you will, people retiring out. How can we trim budget expenses, HR expenses? Obviously, people and buildings are the most expensive pieces of any church budget that we have. So where we used to have 5 finance people in Wayne County, we now have 2. Same thing with maintenance. We're trying to spread that across, hiring more of the part-time staff. Our priests, they are shared, but we still actually have 2, which we're very grateful for. And then faith formation, if you look back at some of those statistics, I know over at Drexel, they would have 50 kids. I mean, there was probably a time at St. Max when we had 50 kids as well. And they had a full-time faith formation person. They even had a religious ed secretary in addition to the secretary of the parish. So we have, as programs have dwindled, it's been really hard because we want to offer programming, but when you have 5 or 6 kids showing up at a parish, how do you have a full-time person hired to handle 5 or 6 people? I mean, we are so grateful to Corey that there was a time she was talking about retiring, and we're grateful to her that she actually will stay on part-time and even expand her role and help us service the faith formation at both places and then even countywide. I mean, we have maybe 10 kids making confirmation across the county. We're really thankful to the parents that they will actually drive the kids to a central point so that they can all get their programming. So that's just a heads up on what the objectives for staffing are. It does create issues because, you know, there's times where we wish we just had more people. We wish we had more hands to help. And that's where we're very grateful for all the volunteer help. And you'll see a ministry slide come up, and it's really because of all the people that want to come in and volunteer that we can actually get things done in the church. Did you want to have? I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. We went a little bit out of order here, but I'm going to ask Father to come up because we thought this was a good spot. It worked out real well Monday. We were looking for an expert to speak about the priest statistics, and Father volunteered. So, would you like the handheld, or do you want to speak in it? Okay.
Can you hear me? Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to this. Thank you for coming, all of you. Wish to thank, first of all, the team, steering committee, who took the call to lead very seriously when I was asked by the bishop to try and work out and see the future in the present of the cluster. Remember, it's about 4 years since we were asked to cluster. So once again, those who are in leadership, the chair being McNeil, who came here before, and Ken from here. We have also our team of steering the streaming, live streaming up there, and all the members who were asked for various positions to join and come together as a group to lead the discussion that have led to that document which you have and we are looking at there. My hope is that the challenge I gave the steering committee is by March I should have a document to take to the bishop. If not ready, they will let me know, but that's the deadline that I gave them. And it was my hope that we can present something to the bishop. Presenting something to the bishop does not mean all of a sudden within a week or 6 months. It's up to him. He will study the document together with his counselors, his advisors, his vicar, like Bishop Matthew did canonically, and then eventually Bishop Matthew gave the decree. It's written, we have one here, one in Epiphany, for us to become one. Our discussion is not mainly leading to that. It's giving to the bishop the idea of how we stand, and it's up to him. But we see various places that can lead to being asked become one parish. But becoming one parish, once again, and this has to be looked into carefully, it doesn't mean closing churches, doesn't mean one priest. It will be guided by the outcome of our results, of what we are doing. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a few things I mentioned the other time. Jim was a timekeeper, and I disobeyed him. I talked a little bit more than I should, but I had to One thing, when I came to this country in 2002, I was sent to stay in St. Helens, which is in Gate. And from St. Helens, you can come to the city of Rochester following the main street. At a walking distance, there were 4 churches. Some of them just 10 minutes, you are there. From St. Helens, you could come to Augustine. St. Augustine, you come to Good Shepherd. Good Shepherd, you go to the Church of St. Monica. Walking distance. These churches were built when you people were born with your families having 6 to 8 children or more. And people had money and they wanted to have a church for the Italian, a church for Germans, a church for, call them. And they did it. This year I went to say Mass at a big church, it's almost 1.5 this church, called the Good Shepherd. It's along that street. The church that was built maybe for 500, there were 50 people, 50, attending masses there and trying to keep the church going. St. Augustine had been closed completely, and the hospital next to St. Good Shepherd, St. Mary's, operating a little bit. The next one was standing on its own in St. Monica, just because there are people where the deaf people also go for Mass. That's one example on that 2002. I got to Owego. Bishop had put together this time, in fact, the ceremony for initiation of one parish was done when I was there. 6 parishes or churches put together. And 3 of them were parishes on their own. 6 put together, 3 priests. So we operated with so many masses. Again, 3 priests, 6 churches. Now, about probably 7 years ago, they were told you will be 2 priests. Only 4 churches are open now. So that's just an example to tell you, if you look at the statistics on priesthood, you are going to see in what we have here, more than 65% of priests in this diocese are over retirement age. And there are some who are at their 80s, just maybe a few, not many, who are still manning parishes as pastors. Maybe they volunteer to do. But that volunteer is because they see the need of being there. Now, when you see that situation going on, and you look at the seminarian we have, even if we have 20 seminarians, having 20 seminarians is not a guarantee we are going to have 20 priests in the coming time. There are some who make an about turn on their own, and there are some who are told to make an about turn by the authority. Okay? We don't know. We don't know. So that's the situation where things are. When we look also at the priesthood, we can see it in this way. The bishop can say the church has to be one for maybe many reasons, but let's look at 2 of them. He doesn't have enough priests, and he tells Owego, now you have 2 instead of 3, okay, in a given area. This is going to be dictated by the fact that the parishes, even themselves, the churches, are people going down the number, financially not able, And he's not going to have the situation restrained and wait for buildings until they fall down for being not taken care of. That's another one way of saying. The next one is financially people can be able, but he tells you, you have been having 2 priests, I can only afford 1 now. Sometimes the bishop has been advised, like other bishops in California, get priests from outside. California gets them from Philippines. Our bishop has a few from Africa and 2 from India, something like that. But you tell him to get more, maybe he's going to tell you, Father, I can get as many priests as you want. But if I take them to the parishes, they are not able to keep them going financially. So this example we have given, the fact that we were told to cluster, there was something the diocese had seen. Even from St. Mary's, Maximilian and St. Brixen, were we shrinking a little bit financially? Probably yes. Maybe there is improvement. And how far is that going to go? Who knows? If I look at the faces here, and some of you know 2 years ago was very difficult for me during the Mass for the senior citizens, looking at the faces of people and trying to think the faces that are missing since I have been here was completely difficult for me. I know them by names, and if I don't know by names, I know they were there. And they are no longer with us. And if they are not longer with us, nobody probably has replaced them in the position they had, strong financially to help the parish and so on. Now, we were told to cluster for a reason which the bishop maybe was advised by the way he got the statistics of the area. Let's say the way when I came over to Epiphany, 2006, January, the CCCWC, whatever it was called, had been meeting for 10 years, looking into parishes and ending up in Epiphany and here put together in a sense. And then we started working to see what this CCW means. In between that, I was told within 1 year in Epiphany, I was a pastor there and there was a sister here, I was told, Father, our finances are this way and that way, but one thing we have to tell you, to offset our budget, we are taking so much money from our account, and in 3 years it will be gone. That was a fact, and I was told to be aware of that, and it was repeated. Not once, it was repeated. It did not take 3 years. Within 2, there was a sign of a big red coming. And all what I had to do is to work with the committees, get together, and then we say, let us merge, and a brother can carry a brother, and a sister can carry a sister. We merged mainly, let's not hide it, because of that. If we did not merge, I was not sure what would happen with Epiphany and St. Rose. St. Rose, I want to mention, was not sold because of being closed. We tried as much as possible to keep St. Rose, and even summer times, even with the financial difficulties, people were helping, but when the mold came uncontrollable, that's what made us to sell St. Rose. Bishop is not very keen on closing and also selling churches. So with these examples, it's just to tell you, when it comes to priests, There are many things to look at, and I wanted to give you that bit of sharing. In case there are questions, we shall answer them later. And this is example I wanted to give you. 3 years ago, when Father Amat was here, he went for a break, a retreat. And his weekend, I asked Father Krakow to come and say Mass here, one Mass. That weekend, in the middle of the night, Saturday, in the middle of the night, midnight, he called me. Father, I cannot come to say Mass tomorrow because our pastor has been taken to hospital with a heart attack. I was a working priest that time to try and get a priest to come here. And good luck, I got Father Condon, and he came to say Mass. Last summer, I went away for a week to help with the mission appeals, and I had worked out everything that a priest is coming to say Mass here. When I was far away, I got a phone call. I cannot come. I called everywhere I could call. The retired priest who used to help here, they told Father, I no longer even drive. Well, I had to call the Vicar General. The Vicar General told me, be comfortable, I'll look for a priest. He did not get. He ended up in going to say Mass himself. I'm giving you an example of how the situation is. Please let us take this very seriously. You do quite a lot of work in Africa, in Asia, helping the churches and so on. There are problems, you read them and you understand and you send money there. Now we have our problem, and we are to solve it, not they or him or her somewhere else. That's my message. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Ron, you going to do the final? Oh, okay. It's up to you.
Good evening. I'm Bernie Sass, married to Ann Sass. Joy of my life. We're going to talk about money. If you look at the sheet called Consolidated Balance Sheet, that's the first of 4 exhibits we have. It's quite simple. We have a bit of money, both at St. Mary's and at St. Catherine's. Combined, we got $1,251,000 on this report. The money is tied up different ways. Some is long-term. We have a long-term will here. The implication there is that the donor sometimes has very specific directions in how we can spend the money, and that's something that we're obligated to do. We'll investigate that further because we need greater clarification ourselves as we go forward. But at least we can be assured that we have some money in the bank. It has covered our big expenses. One of them was the legal payments we had to come up with here, about a year or so ago. And both parishes was able to do what they had to do, and we still have this, at least this comfort level in money at this time. On the next page, the consolidated operating revenue and expenses. You've got St. Mary's, you've got actually St. Max, St. Catherine's, and total. I'm most interested in the operated gains or losses from 2019 to 2023. If you look at that column for St. Max, you'll see that we end up pretty much with a negative balance at the end of every year. If you look at St. Catherine Drexel, you'll see that they did a much better job. There was money left over at the end of each year. But when you look at the bottom line, the budget for this year, and look all the way over to the final number there, $70,832. If our planned budget works out to be what we say it is. We got a $70,000 deficit between the two parishes. Now, we've had a hint tonight that the changes are happening to us as an organization, to us as a future parish. If fewer people are coming to church, it's affecting us dollars and cents wise and everything else. And it's a question of how do we address something like that. And different ideas come up and so forth. One of them is that we perhaps announce to the people at large that we simply need a little bit of help. We've been impacted by inflation as much as anybody else. And it would help if we could make the difference. If you go one page further, we've got building expenses. I think the question is asked, what does it take to run one of these buildings here? Well, we've got them all listed, and you can see with the electric, the gas, insurance, care of the grounds and so forth, what it all sums up to. This comes into play when we begin to ask ourselves, what's the impact on the organization relative to a given piece of property? And what does the property perhaps return to us? And it could be either a hall or it could be a church or something like that. This is one way of beginning to understand what might be most economical to do in a future plan. On the next page, we have future capital expenditures. Here at St. Max, we've got a flat roof over our hall area here. It will need to be replaced in a while, a couple of years. We have windows at Epiphany that are in varied states of disrepair, and we're simply going to have to step to that repair and go to work on it. If we do all the windows, it's going to be $150,000 to $200,000. So we've prioritized it to do what we can do for the windows that are in worse condition. For the long term, we're looking at a parking lot out here that's breaking down 5 years, let's say. Who knows? We also have parking at St. Patrick's. My experience was last night visiting 2 days ago, visiting St. Patrick's at night and trying to figure out exactly how I get that pickup truck of mine into a place and so forth. And I guess it's a challenge every Sunday for the folks that come there to Mass. You know, the parking lot needs some work, and that is part of a long-term plan. And there's also some building work, I guess electrical at St. Patrick's that needs work too. So none of that stops. Our buildings are getting older. We do the best we can to care for them. We had a $700,000 capital campaign here at St. Mary's, and we did lots of things. There's a new roof on this church right here. It was in bad shape. If you see these dark gray straps here under each one of the beams, that's a reinforcement. These beams are kind of pulling apart, glue releasing or whatever. And so we had to come in here and put these straps on just to hold everything back together again. That's expensive, you know, but it goes on like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mary?
Just to add a little bit for building and ground, Brittany talked about the capital campaign here. Over at Drexel, we were able to do quite a few improvements over there over the past 6-8 years with the help of the diocese. Over at St. Anne's, we put in new HVAC systems in their parish center, and the diocese supported 50% of that cost. They also did exterior painting, and also the bell, there's a hanging bell in there, and it had one of the yokes that it sits on and rotates on had busted, and it was actually it was more of an emergency situation where it could have even fallen through into the choir loft. So the diocese helped support getting that funded, and repaired, and we actually put in new electronic chimes in there as well. Over at St. Patrick's, we did some parking lot repairs. That building has copper gutters, and the seams end up splitting after years and years and years. So we had those all resoldered, and we had the interior of the church painted. So we were able to take advantage of, the help of the diocese to help us fund those things. And the big hurdle over there is going to be the parking lot for sure. Financially also, during COVID, when we had such downturn in attendance and financial issues, we were able to apply to the state for the PPP grant funding that they allowed to help keep our people employed. And we were able to secure financing to help pay salaries, so we didn't have to lay off any people. So that was very beneficial. I know that was one of the questions over at Drexel the other night. What have we done to try to take advantage of grants and items like that? So that's pretty much a wrap up on building and grounds.
All right, we are keeping track of time here, so we got time for questions. Laura, you're going to speak? Ministry report. I told her Monday night she had 30 seconds.
Yeah, we'll just use this one. Okay. I'm Laura Colvin from St. Mary's, and I was on the subcommittee for ministries with Lucille Hamlin and Jim Nall, Ken Toner, and Kathy Stager. And we were tasked with putting together a document that lists all of the ministries from all 4 churches, both parishes. And you can see kind of how a lot of the liturgical ministries are the same, but each church has unique ministries to their own, like the Daughters and Sons at St. Anne's, and we have Parish Life here, and St. Patrick's has a huge food pantry that helps many people in their area, as well as I think they partnered with Food Link, and that's a thriving ministry there. So you can see where there's many similarities. There's also many that differ. Good.
Thank you. So for the rest of the time here, we're going to open it up to questions and answers. We will do our best. Each of the subcommittee members, if they can, they will answer. If not, we're going to record things, and I'm just going to ask for hands if somebody has a question.
Can I say, before we do this, just as Father said, we're live streaming this. In fact, we have I looked on the views, we have about 30 or 40 people out there they're watching on the live stream. And it's live streamed both because this is a vitally critical, important meeting that will also be now recorded on YouTube to be replayed. And for those of the hundreds of parishioners in both churches are able to replay it at any time, so they could get the full impact of the meeting. So with that being said, we are going to ask questions. And so it's important, I know everybody's not comfortable holding a microphone or speaking into a microphone, and I know you might want to ask that question like right away, but if you could please wait until we get you a microphone. So the benefit to share that question, that everyone here hears it, and most certainly everybody on the live stream and on the recorded version hears it, because even the committee will be able, if this question is not answerable or it needs to be crafted with further information, the recorded version is going to be able to help the committee do their work after this meeting, okay? So a little patience with us until we get you a microphone, and you could speak into the mic, okay?
And when you ask your question, please, if you would, give your name and where you attend Mass. That helps us.
Thank you. My name is Joe Bradbury. I attend Mass at St. Pax here. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee for the effort in pulling all this information together to share with us. And my question is, do we have enough information at this point to point us in any particular direction, or is that still up in the air?
Father, you want to answer that one, or something?
Yeah,
Mary? Okay.
As Father pointed out earlier, we were given the task of really fact-finding and to deliver statistics and trends to the bishop through Father, and have Father make a recommendation, if he so chooses, to the bishop as to what we're going to do. Will we ever have enough information, I think, is a really good question, because in some of my discussions with my steering committee peers, you know, we looked at the financial information, a $70,000 deficit. As Ron put it the other night at St. Anne's, that equates with the number of contributors we have to $2.46 per week increase per person, per contributor, per family, whatever that is. Does that feel like a lot? Probably less than your cup of coffee once a week at Dunkin' Donuts, right? Okay, so we can think about it that way, but here's another spin. We have a handful of people, handful of families at each parish that contribute sizable amounts of money. So if we lost one of those donors, that could impact our deficit from 70 to 75. If we lost multiples, we could go from $70,000 deficit to 90, 100. That could happen in a year. Here's the other thing that's not even in the trend. What about all the funerals we had? Last year, Dick Doyle gave me a report, left it on the desk. We did 17 funerals in the calendar year of 2023. Yes. So chances are most of those people, because they wanted to have a funeral mass, were parishioners here at one point in time. Now, they may not have been coming to church recently, but those are the trends and the statistics that we see. So your $2.46 could end up being $5 or $10 with the loss of our generous contributors. So I want to point out those facts as well. Will we ever have enough information? Probably not, but we can sure see the writing on the wall. And another person came to me after Monday and said, Mary, why don't you talk about New York State? Why don't you talk about the government and what is happening in forcing people to leave, right? Our kid, my family, one out of my two kids still lives in Rochester area. The other one moved out, better opportunity. Father talked about this on Monday night. How many of you have, just show of hands, how many of you have children that have actually moved out of Rochester? Okay, holy smokes, that's almost everybody, right? So, I mean, we pray for our people, we pray for our kids to come to church. I pray that my son goes to church when he's in California, let alone come back to Walworth, New York. So, I don't know. When I talk to the diocese about long-range planning, we can go one of two ways. We can either combine. We both have financial resources at the moment. We can combine, we can work together and create what the future will look like and plan for it together. Or we can end up like what happened with Epiphany. That could be the hard landing, as they say, and we will be forced to do something. And I'm sure we're going to be forced to do something between 5 and 10 years from now if we don't start looking. Pardon?
We don't have any direction at this point.
Well, the direction is, what direction are we going to take?
But what I'm looking for is Do we have any leading indicators that are pushing us towards something like that? Do we have any leading indicators that will push us towards something like that, a combining?
We have leaning indicators of large deficits and certainly priesthood retirements. Those are the two indicators that are driving this conversation tonight.
Any other questions?
Or even comments on just the discussion we just had. Hold on, wait.
I don't need one. Most of you know who I am. All I want to know is, what did you mean when you said, what happened at Epiphany?
Where Father said that when he came there, there was enough reserves to get through 3 years of financial distress, and it was less than that before the parish was forced to merge. That's what I meant. They ran out of money.
Questions? Ann Hudson.
I don't think, excuse me.
Sure.
I don't think it's, I have my microphone. I don't think the issue of Epiphany is any accusation. It's a fact. And there's nothing we can do with the fact. That's what happened. I was told that, and I asked the committees to get together to discuss. It's not a matter of saying what happened or we are putting Epiphany backward. No. It's a reality. I was sent there, and this is the experience I had. When I went to the diocese to talk with the officials there, Bernard, and even the office of the bishop. Yes, I was told this has been on the plan for 10 years, arranging how the churches can come together. Will you get ready for Epiphany and St. Mary to merge? If you want it in written, we have it in the book we sent to the bishop. We didn't say there's no money, but we say it's a shortcoming that will force us to go. And Anne, I don't know whether you are in the finance committee. Those who are in the finance committee, they know that. Helen knows that. She was in the office. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Anybody else?
There's got to be more discussion because we had a lot more on Monday night. Just give thoughts. It's not so much just questions, but concerns like Joe had. I mean, feel free to speak up.
Jack Kelly, Epiphany. What are the next steps after this meeting? What's going to take place and who's going to do it?
Sorry.
I'd like to mention one of the things that came up on Monday. The answer to your question is the next steps is our committee is going to put together a document to give to Father that is going to be our findings and possibly some recommendations. This is a planning committee. This is to give Father something to pass on in document form. And a lot of the fact-finding and what the subcommittees have done is really put the data together, because you can talk about things and till you have it in front of you, that you can see the numbers and understand the trends like Ken talked about. Those trends are important because if you see a 10-year trend that's going down, I can't imagine that you're going to get a spike to go back up to where you were 10 years ago in a short period of time. So that's one thing. Another thing came up on Monday is that one topic of discussion we've had that's kind of come to the top of the heap is possibly one parish to merge the two parishes into one. And again, some people, Father talked about short-term, long-term. Even with doing that, there's a lot of options. Short-term, Father said, that doesn't mean tomorrow. Short-term could be 6 months, it could be a year. Long-term could be 5 years. We don't know the answers to those questions, and that's where, when we put our facts together and get them in front of us, that is where it helps you come up with options to give to Father. But one thing we came up with on Monday was, we talk about merging, but we never really have sat down and looked at the pros and cons. So we kind of tasked ourselves together, this committee, that we're going to try our best to put together a document to share with all of the community what we feel the pros and the cons are. And we're going to ask for help with that too. You know, if you think there's a good reason to do it or a good reason not to do it, then we can put that into a document. So once again, you got it in front of you so you can read it and say, yeah, that's a problem, or boy, there's a way to do it. It was, I mentioned it years ago. I was an elected official, and I retired, but when the governor came down with a mandate that all of the municipalities in New York State had to create shared service. Remember when that was the big thing, shared service? We got to get together, we got to share resources. Well, I took a little offense to that, because I can tell you the town of Palmyra, the town of Macedon, and the town of Walworth had been doing that for 20 years. And the governor came out and said, you got to do this. I almost felt like stopping just so we could start again and take credit for it. But I think one of the things, in my opinion, on the plus side is shared services. And I can't tell you what those would all be tonight. It could be parish council, could be finance committee, could be different ministries. But there's opportunities, and some of them, I don't even think we know of them yet. We have to get them down on paper and look at the good and the bad and say, pass it on to Father. The community thinks, here's the good reasons, here's the bad reasons. So we're going to work on that. And I think that's a real step in the right direction. I think that's a next step, to go to your question earlier.
That's exactly what I was looking for.
Well,
Okay.
And the other night, we asked all the parishioners that were at the meeting to put their pros and cons in the collection basket on this Sunday. After you go home and look at this information, please give us your feedback. We need it. That's why we're here tonight, to ask for it.
Father?
A few times in the course of discussion, people have come with the idea of let us work on calling people back to church and invite young people and young families. I think at this stage, those are things we shall do after we know what is going to happen. And I'm giving that example because we are talking of calling young families. Where are they? There are very few. Well, you are here already. We are not going to call you. We are talking of the situation like this. Young people and young families, they also go where jobs are available. And that's a reality. When I went to Owego, I was told the churches there, even like St. Margaret Mary in Upper Lincoln, was built because the churches were full of people. Whatever the business machine that was their factory, it had employed 12,000 people. And by the time I went there were 4,000. Just an example. There are no jobs here to attract those young families. Young people want to have a place, they have a job to raise their families. If they are here with a job, that's a good luck of something, but no industry. Calling people, you are telling us to call them, we are calling them even now with live stream. You hear how many are at home listening and watching, and we thank them. But we tried here to even write and send letters and increase, we asked to increase in the past, increase the whatever you give. Now, economically, we cannot blame anybody. It's all over. But at the moment, once we go whichever way we shall be directed by our meeting, by the bishop, thus there are things to work together to find out what to do. The question I was having the other day, which we ended up with, was, with all the information we have now, the meditation which we should have is either who will think it's better to merger as soon as possible. And when I mean as soon as possible, not tomorrow, once again. Merging, you can still have your two priests, you can still have what you do, but there are certain things that may come to a change. Because according to the law, of course, if you become one corporation, you'll have to bear one name. The sites may keep their names. That's one thing. The other thing, we can work out as we are working, how the finances will work together. And my recommendation from day one when we were told to cluster, I was thinking we would move into the merger discussion when we know every entity or every party has something to contribute. Yes, has something to bring in. And we want to wait. We are not telling the bishop that we want to merge. We are giving him a proposal of how we look at one another, our parishes, and he will guide us also. He has his own way of guiding us. He may tell us, if you don't do this now, by 1 year or 2 years, this may not be possible. He asked us to cluster, and he asked us to discuss what we are discussing. So he has also some light somewhere. But to call people now and let's send letters and all that, those will come later. This is a crucial time to make a decision or to propose a decision.
Thank you, Father. I can't speak for the whole committee, but I can tell you myself personally, when this all began, I was very pleased because really what the bishop said to us, and this is twofold because there's short-term and long-term, but when you look at the long-term, I thought it was excellent that the bishop came to us and said, basically, tell me what you think you're going to look like in 10 years. And then he has something to base his decisions on. I was very pleased with that because it doesn't happen very often. Usually you just go day to day and where you end up, you end up. But just an opportunity for us to say, here's what we would like to look like, or here's what we think we should look like in 10 years. I think that's a real benefit, and it's a challenge almost for us because everybody, Father said it, he said it several times. Everybody said, oh, which churches are we closing? That's never entered our discussion. That's not part of our discussion. Our discussion is to see what this community is going to look like in the future. The short term, absolutely, everybody has to prepare for that. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but the long term, to me, that's important.
Hello, I'm Peg Deedle. I belong here in this pew, pretty much every time I come to Mass. I had a couple of thoughts. I think that everyone here has the same goal, if you think about it. We just need a place to come and receive the Lord. That's our number one goal, no matter what happens. Raise your hand if you agree. Yes, amen. And I had was, we were to go down to one priest, and that priest can only say so many masses on a weekend, whatever that rule is. If that would change or not, I don't know. None of us knows, I think. That could influence the situation as well. Sometimes, we've had things happen in the past. We are 40-year members of this parish. And through all those years, we've had a lot of changes, and people don't like to even give up their seat at the kitchen table, let alone do something else, right? So it's going to take a lot of that kind of compassion for one another. We're going to have to decide what matters more to us individually and for our families. And when we come to Mass in reverence, that's attractive to more people. Just, Lord, wear your faith on your sleeve, and we can all say, Jesus, we need you now.
For me, hike down here.
I'm Kathy Grandjean, and we go to Epiphany and St. Max, St. Mary, so we're St. Max. I just have a thought, I guess, and a question for the committee. Is your direction then, because we don't know how many priests, and when will we know that, how many priests we'll have even next year, is your direction, are you looking at two scenarios? Like, where do we go if the bishop all of a sudden says, you only have one priest? That could happen next year, as soon as that. And then, obviously, there would be the other option. If we were to remain with two priests, then that gives us a little more leeway. So just with my background, I guess I would say that that should be something that the committee should be working on. So what happens if we're down to one, or what happens if we, and so I'm asking if that's,
So I had a brief conversation at the diocesan level, and in our planning of a steering committee, when I met with the finance steering subcommittee group, we ran some numbers of what would happen if this Mass closed. And we looked at it from a Mass perspective, because we track revenue by the Mass time, actually, and the building. It would not benefit us to go to one priest. The revenue loss from the Mass would exceed the savings from dropping the salary and benefits of one priest. So that was clear to us. So the objective would be to keep two priests as long as we possibly can. To keep two priests, to keep 6 masses, to keep 4 churches, right? That would be of benefit to us. We will lose a priest when there are not enough priests to come in. And like Father said, they can bring priests in, but at some point in time, and that's the long range, we won't be able to afford possibly 2 priests in the long-term picture. When you look at the trends and when you look at losing significant contributors and having 17 funerals at St. Max Colby, and I don't even know how many Drexel had last year. I mean, those are staggering numbers. So there is a short term, and the short term is to merge and plan together for the long-term direction. I think that would be beneficial to us.
so it sounds to me like you're thinking we're going to be able to keep 2 priests.
That's what we're thinking at this point in time. Yep, that is a big answer. And that's why we haven't, that's why closing a location is not in the discussion, because if we have 2 priests, we don't have to close location at this point in time. And we do know for a fact that Bishop Matano does not want to close churches. It's probably not going to happen under his tenure. So that's the short-term look.
Question here.
And I'm very sure that when Father does retire, he wouldn't mind that phone call at midnight. Can you come say Mass tomorrow? Thank you, Father.
We have another question here. One other question here.
The weekend will be over before I come here.
I'm Jean Bell, and I attend St. Mary's. when we're talking about the future and the pros and cons and the priests, if we should also be looking at how to make that positive, whatever that is. And a thing that we could implement tomorrow to take care of the priests we do have is I've long thought about the mileage they put on, not every day, but between masses. And I would like to put an idea out there that actually adds a line item to our budget, but I think it's a good one, and it's a part of the big picture that you're going to be presenting. And I wonder whether, if the pros and cons of this tiny idea were taken, we should be providing or budgeting for, either one, a driver for any priest who has 2 masses back to back. I wonder about their own spirituality and taking care of them, because if you leave them the 8:30 Mass here and drive into Sodus, and there's the least bit of traffic or something, that poor priest has to jump out, vest, and go into Mass. And I wonder if it would make sense to have drivers just in those situations. I don't mean a chauffeur, Father Simon. I just mean a ride between back-to-back Masses. And I think we could be a model for the parish, and the bishop will love us twice as much. But I think that's one. The second idea, these are tiny ideas, not big ones. But my second tiny idea is take the stigma off attending Mass by Zoom. There are 2 reasons. The first one is, when we travel, we frequently attend Mass in our home parish. I think that helps bind us to it, and we've started to give our envelopes differently, so whether we attend in person or we don't, it doesn't impact that. But there is a thought that you must attend in person, and surely that's, our thought and so on. But the more distance we put between us and the more years we put on our ages, George and I often use the Sunday Mass during a bad snowstorm. And so when we hear welcome back, when we hear hello to you on there, we feel connected to the parish. But when we hear we ought to be attending in person, we don't feel as good. So what is the criterion for attending Mass through the Zooming that's legitimate and good and positive? I'd like to think that over when we do all of our pros and cons, because I think the one for travel is an extension of our being able to do it occasionally on Sunday. The end.
Thank you. That's why we're recording this, because these ideas. And yes.
Sure. When you're speaking in mic, you're here. So it's something you should pass on.
Some people are afraid of it.
Didn't bite me, so it won't bite you.
Thank you.
We got a question there. And one in front.
You can be next.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kate Miller. I'm a St. Mary's person, have been my entire life, baptized here, and had all my sacraments here. So, well, yes, I'm a Doyle.
She's a Doyle.
I'm looking at the town hall meeting notes here in the very bottom one. The effort resulted in 254 responses. And those people had a lot of suggestions, or actually concerns. How are we addressing them? Because that might bring people back to the church.
As I said during my short presentation, I looked at every one of those surveys. I separated out, because what I found very quickly was I'll use the word 2 different dynamics, one in St. Max Kobe and one in Catherine Drexel. And so I broke out the answers to all of the questions that were asked on the survey as to how many people said that they wouldn't travel, they would travel outside the cluster, et cetera. And the areas that were asked about suggestions for bringing people back, suggestions for additional ministries, all of that has been tabulated and it's been given to the planning committee. And so that purpose was, and I specifically told the committee, These are what I call actionable pieces of information. There's somebody that's interested in having Martha Ministry or the Legion of Mary or a children's choir. And so the parish councils and the finance committees of each of the parishes have that information and will be able to act upon it.
I just want to jump in on Jim's comments. We have sent information to the parish secretaries to try to gather some of these topics. But when somebody says they're interested in Martha Ministry, let's use the example at St. Patrick's. We need more than one person to do that. And I think Laura Colvin, how many people do you have on Martha Ministry here that takes to make that happen? Right? 13, 15, maybe 20. But I'm not discounting that people want more activity, but we need to really it needs to really be structured at the parish council level, push down, ask for volunteers, see if you can rally some of these groups together. Another woman stopped me on Monday. They want to have coffee hour at St. Patrick. I would love to have coffee hour here at St. Mary's of the Lake. I think the only ones that really do it well are the daughters over at St. Anne's and Epiphany, with their monthly luncheons or whatever. But
we're not doing the luncheons because we don't have enough volunteers for it anymore.
Okay, so again,
they are doing coffee hours.
Coffee hours are happening, but no more luncheons. And then when Joe says, what are the factors that are causing us to look at what we're doing? Volunteerism and the number of volunteers and the age of our volunteers is really driving some of the functions that we can have or not have. So we have to think about our volunteers and how do we rally them.
I just wanted to tell you one thing. My sister goes up to Maine every summer. They lived up there for 5 years. They went through the problem of it not having enough priests. They had one priest that his parish was 175 miles between 3 churches. What they did was they had Mass on one week and at one of the churches, and then at the other churches, they had communion services, and they alternated it so that every 3rd week they had a Mass. But Patty said there was no decrease in people coming to church. She'd be here tonight, but she's having a real tough time, so shoulder.
I did not get. Hello?
More suggestions. We need suggestions.
Ken? What's the question?
We got one here. And you.
I'm Holly Beauvais, and my family goes to both of the churches up here at St. Max. My question for the committee, I guess, is have you looked at churches outside of our cluster in terms of faith formation, especially because that's where I volunteer in here, but the churches that I've seen at diocesan events, their faith formation directors have more hours. And granted, that's going to cost us money, but if we always talk about youth and wanting more youth involved, have we looked into investing more in our youth more? And some of the kids that I teach, they don't want to drive 45 minutes. Their families don't want to drive 45 minutes to get to faith formation because it's only at one of these churches. So I'm just wondering if you've looked at numbers outside of our cluster too, in terms of the churches that I've seen with the more active faith formation programs and that kind of thing. They're giving more hours to their faith formation coordinators.
If we could get a handle on actually how many families would come and participate, and we actually had an uptick in, I think, in the number and the commitment, I would think we would want to put our money there. That's what I mean, I believe no one here in this parish would deny that.
But you can't see those numbers if changes aren't happening.
Right, but I guess the task is really point us to the statistics, help us find those families. I mean, when COVID hit, it seemed like there's very few families that truly came back after COVID. I mean, that's a statistic countywide and diocesan-wide. We're looking for ways to find those families and to get them back at a convenient time when they want to be here. I mean, you can see it in the pews and you can see it in the collection that when we have religious ed, our church is fuller and our money goes up. I mean, but we need those families here all the time, all the time.
Any other questions or comments or?
Yep, Carol.
Got it here.
Carol May from here. Commenting on Holly's just then first, and then I have something else I had planned to say. When I retired as youth minister here, there were me and also Linda Mall as religious ed. That amount went down, and Corey got twice as much to do. So, when we look at church, we look at the church full on religious ed Sundays, gee, if we increased her hours, she could have all the Sundays for religious ed, and then that would be a win-win, the way I'm doing the math. Anyway, what I'm finding missing in all of this, thank you for this, all of the facts and figures, but what I'm finding missing is a sense of the Spirit guiding us. And this afternoon, I was thinking about that, and I went and looked at God Calling for Today, which is something we use at yoga in the morning. Bad word to use, I know. Let me get back here. And the reading ended with, "You are on uncharted waters, but the Lord of the seas is with you. The controller of storms is with you. Sing for joy." We need to show what Peg said. We need to show the joy that we have in celebrating here, or, all of our churches. And if you take a look next time you're in church, look up Sing a New Church. Take special look at verse 3. Trust the goodness of creation. Trust the Spirit strong within. Dare to dream the vision promised, sprung from seed of what has been. We are the seed of what has been, and we need to continue to live that and show it. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you. We only have a couple of minutes left, and I'll take the blame for this one. Monday, we asked Father to do an opening prayer, which, of course, he did a wonderful job. So this evening, since we didn't do that, I'm going to ask Father, could you please do a closing prayer for our meeting?
Okay, now the leaders, of course, I believe before the prayer, the leaders have understood and found out what we wanted. The consensus, not the consensus, but the mind of the people. And it's good for us to know, if I may say, there are things we can do after we know what will happen. And let's not try to work out a situation that will derail and prevent the mind of what is in the bishop's mind. We cannot derail that. Once again, if I would take you back to Owego, when they were asked to merge, one parish had been left a lot of money by two blood sisters, not nuns, two blood sisters. They left them 1.8 million. That sent James of Waverley. And they told the bishop, we can employ our own priest. And the bishop asked them, where is he going to come from? So we have so many techniques of maybe knowing this can happen, but whichever way God will guide us will be our way, and we cooperate and work together. If the bishop says you have to wait for other years before you can merge, it doesn't mean even if one priest will go and he has promised you have two, he will know where to get the second one. Don't be worried about two priests. You'll keep two priests as long as the bishop can afford. That's no problem. It doesn't have to be me or father. We can go tomorrow, but he will man the place and bring the people here. Let's not look at the other thing is if, and this is my appeal to everyone and those listening from far and wide, we need all of us to support one another on this journey. It may not be difficult, and it may also be difficult. Because if somebody says, no, I want to sit where my grandfather was sitting in 1902, and therefore they want to keep that church, I have to apologize beforehand that that could not happen to everyone. Please, let's put that in mind. And I ask all of you, we have been serving you here, or me, a bit longer than Father, and enjoyed very much my stay with so many gifted people. But when a situation like this comes, we need to support one another as much as possible. And that's the message we have. So I'll ask the team to continue with the work that is remaining. And if anyone wants to share anything, you can email, you can leave an envelope for the committee in the collection and whatever, so that we can work out very nicely. Once more, I thank you all for coming. The attendance of this has been, I would say, reasonably better than I thought, and I think we have helped one another. Today is the memorial of Desel. He was a bishop, a journalist, a writer, and he's the patron of the journalist. And one of his many, many things was to bring people to God through writing things for them to read. The same thing also St. Maximilian Kolbe did also. Let us pray. Please stand. Father, we thank you for our discussion, and guided by you, we cannot go wrong. You send your spirit to each one of us, to our families, to members of our parishes who are not able to attend, and those who are following with the live stream. Help us to see things your way and do them your own way. Hail Mary. Lord with thee. Blessed is the fruit of Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. The Lord be with you. Mighty God bless you, Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. You have a good night.
Thank you once again, everybody, for coming. Please drive careful going home. It's a little foggy out there. And again, if you have any interest in any of the ministries, please feel free to reach out, talk to Father, or reach out to one of us. Thank you. There you go. Thank you, sir. No, no problem. It's